close all that you have worked on. You ask for too much. Windows has crashed. That crash has reduced your expensive computer to a simple stone. Yesterday it worked, today it is not working. Windows is like that. Your files were so big, they might be very useful, but now they are gone. There you go. Those are all haikus that I didn't write, but I found them. I spent some time looking for them for you, dear Windows users. So I'm not really sure how to segue from that back into like stuff related to demo day. So I'm not going to bother trying to segue. We're just going to dramatically change tack and refocus on the task in hand. So you're about to see 14 developers present about a week and a half worth of work to you. But you should remember where they've all come from. They've come from different places and how they got to where they are today. Some of them had hardly had any programming experience prior to the bootcamp, and others had done some, but not so much that the journey wasn't still incredibly hard. The journey took them through technical locations such as test-driven development and OOP, during which times they might have asked questions like, why are you making us do this, Eddie? And when will I ever use this? And of course, we've looked at things like databases and how the web works and how teams work and all of that good stuff. We also took a few short breaks at self-doubt high and imposter syndrome alley. But they've all made it, and they've all grown. And hopefully they'll look back on this as a positive experience one day. I know that I'll look back on it as a positive experience. We just had our final retro together, and I told them then, and I'll tell you now, that I've learned a lot as well during the last 12 weeks working with them. And maybe at some point soon, Stockholm syndrome will kick in, and they'll feel fondly about this as well. So when you see today's presentations, please bear in mind that these projects were about 1.5 weeks in the making. So when you see how amazing they are, just kind of keep in mind that they represent like a really thin slice, through the course. Kind of like a two-dimensional snapshot of the past 12 weeks. And what better way to capture a two-dimensional snapshot than with a 2D game, which is exactly what the first team has built. Not only that, but they've had to build their own lightweight physics engine in order to make that possible. This is not how they would describe it because they're too modest. But they had to, they didn't have tools in their framework that would just like give them gravity. So they had to think about how gravity works and build that into it. And they didn't have tools in their framework that would allow them to detect collisions. So they had to think about that and do that themselves as well. Another cool thing about their project is that they've built it in a way that makes it easy to extend. So they can add new levels in without creating a whole huge mess of spaghetti code. So it's super impressive, and they've built a really, really cool game. The team is called Super Ruby Pros. So I will hand you over to them now.
Cool. Thank you very much, Eddie. If you bear with me one moment, I'm just going to share my screen and we'll bring everything up. So this is our presentation. Our game is the Super Ruby Pros, and we are now the Super Ruby Pros. I'm Harry, and I'll be presenting with Jess and Mitchell. So first thing we wanted to show everyone was just a demo of our final project. What we want to do throughout this presentation is show you guys the building blocks that we had to get to, obviously, this AAA piece of work you see in front of you that we will be marketing afterwards. Here's just a bit of a snapshot at some of the steps we took to get there. And we'll go through these steps on the slides so you can see how it works. And now I'm just going to pass you on to Mitchell, who's going to talk about the libraries we used.
Yes, thank you, Harry. So yes, firstly, we understood that there was an important decision regarding the architectural design of the game that we had to consider. we discovered two libraries that we could use, which were Gosu and Ruby 2D. Now, we ended up going with Ruby 2D, and the deciding factor for us was the documentation and content, with Ruby 2D initially having a lot more compared to Gosu, which really helped us understand some of the fundamental components. Now I'll just pass you on to my colleague, Jessica.
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, so with our research, we eventually got to the documentation for Ruby 2D, and it seemed really good to start with, but we soon hit a bit of a brick wall. So the documentation didn't explain any physics like the collision or the jump in, etc. It was very, very basic, only explaining or demonstrating really simple concepts like moving a square left to right on the screen. So at this point, we turned to the internet and we found a couple of YouTube videos, but again, they didn't quite demonstrate what we were looking for, and there were not many of them at all. So I went back to Google, come across a few Stack Overflow bits with some information on there, but again, it wasn't really relevant and it was quite hard to come across. So after a lot of time researching and playing around with things, Harry did actually manage to figure things out, which is great. In hindsight, I personally wouldn't use Ruby 2D again for the reasons that I've just gone over. If I did have to stick with Ruby to create another game, I would probably look at Gosu next time around. There did seem to be more material with that library, the more that we digged into things. So when we were trying to research things like collision and jumping for Ruby 2D, Gosu actually kept popping up, but no Ruby 2D at all.
Perfect. So now we're going to actually talk about the game. So as Jess said, the first thing we did was we created a square and we needed to make it move on the screen, which thanks to the documentation was actually quite easy to do to start off with. And then we realized in the real world, we have this thing called gravity, which pulls us down. We don't just float up in the air. So we implemented a gravity, which immediately made us sink right through the floor. So we realized in the real world, we also have this thing called a floor, which stops us once we hit gravity. And once we implemented a floor, we had a square that could fall, it could hit the floor, and then we could move it left to right.
Yeah, cool, thank you. So once we gave our square a floor, the next challenge was to create the jumping mechanic itself. As Harry said, we could only move left and right at this point. So when we created the jump, it was actually the opposite of what we wanted. We created a falling mechanic, as you can see, and this was because of the y-axis of our grid counts down instead of up. So the maths to create the jump was backwards, which we then inverted and fixed the issue. Now looking at the second video in the middle, now that we fixed the jump, we quickly found out that jumping negated the effects of gravity. And this was because we would remove gravity to allow the square to jump, but it then just wouldn't be reapplied. And then we concluded that gravity should be constant, and then we changed the maths accordingly to apply a greater force to our jump, which would then counteract the gravity, which would then pull us back to the floor.
Perfect. So now we can move and we have a jump. We needed something to jump on. Our first attempt was pretty fruitless. I don't know what we expected. We put a box on the screen and just hoped it would have some form of collision. Obviously it didn't. I don't know why we thought we were going to go with that. But then the second attempt, we found a method within Ruby 2D which allows us to check if certain coordinates are contained within other objects. So the moment the one of the corners of our X hits the object, what we did was we took gravity away, but we then struggled to reapply it. So you can see we hit the box and then we just float. We can move left and right and we just float. So what we did was, instead of taking gravity away, we made an element that when we hit the box, we had like an anti-gravity. So the gravity would pull us down and the anti-gravity would push us up. So we'd create like a balance which would cancel the two out. And then when we fell off, it was a lot easier to take that anti-gravity away and leave the actual gravity constant all the time.
So now that we'd nailed the basics, it was time to have a little bit of fun with it. So this brought us on to creating enemies and coins. So to create the enemies and coins, we actually used a sprite site. It had thousands of these sort of characters already made as sprites, like animations or just images alone. I used an app called Scratch to edit out any background or white space, so it was kind of flush with the window. Our first step was to obviously get our enemies moving. So we achieved this by adding or removing speed from the X or Y coordinates. So when the enemies hit a boundary that was set by us. Our next challenge with these tasks was getting our enemies moving and our main character interacting with them. So for enemy interaction, we initially started with little white squares as our enemies that you can see on the screen there. And we used similar logic with the platform with the contains method. So if our enemy squares detected any X or Y coordinates of our main character, we had a method that would remove the life from the player and also a reset method so the level would just start again. The coins was a very similar concept with the collision. So the coin count would increase and the X position of that coin was set to 1,000, for example. So it would completely disappear from the screen. So that would mean you can't collect the same coin over and over again.
Perfect. So once we had all of that, it was time to really just have some fun with the game. We started developing and editing levels. We did a big refactor so we could edit levels a lot easier, like Eddie said at the beginning. And yeah, we decided to go over beginner, an intermediate, and an expert level, which you can see in that order. Jess and Mitchell did the complete art design, which is why it looks as beautiful as it looks, if I do say so myself. And the few things that you can't see that's actually going on with the game is we do have sounds. So there's like a sound when you die, a sound when you collect a coin, a sound when you jump, music in the background, which I'm sick to death of hearing. But there is music in the background that plays and music in the background when you die. And there's also a game over screen once your lives do hit 0. So we just want to open it now up to any questions if we do have any time. So yeah, please feel free to come at us with any questions you've got.
Thank you so much. Really, really nice presentation and really awesome, awesome projects. Really well done, folks. There's time for a couple of questions. If anybody wants to either unmute themselves and ask or type something in the chat there. Anybody has any questions? Any questions?
One. In terms of the when you were deciding, how you were going to design your game, because obviously you started off with some basic concepts, collisions, moving things around, and so forth. Where did you get your themes from? Did you do a lot of research into that? Was it just asking people around? How did you put that together?
So we decided from the beginning that we wanted a platformer. So we had an idea in mind of where we wanted the game to end up. I guess if you're talking more art themes, I'll let Jess or Mitchell take that, as they completely took the lead on that as part of the game.
I think we were kind of going for like a Mario sort of theme, like design wise, and just making it a bit random. So like we had like the water at the bottom, so I decided to use like sea creatures for the enemies, like you got jellyfish and crabs. But yeah, we didn't really like ask around. It was just kind of what we wanted to do to make it fun as a final project, I guess. Do you have anything to add, Mitch?
No, that was a pretty good explanation, really. It was just kind of like, for us, it was just more of like a build, measure, learn, just see what happens, what could we do, what could we incorporate, and just took it from there, really, and just kind of elaborated from there, yeah.
Oh, thanks for the question, Andrew. I'm going to take one more question from the chat and then we'll move on. So I think the next one to be asked was, how did you implement the different difficulty levels?
So the first level we decided was going to be the easiest, and the way we decided we would do it is the floor. There was only one way to die on the first level, and that was if you decided to go for the coins. So you essentially could fall and land and just learn the basic mechanics of the game. And then the other 2 levels, me and Jess created one collaboratively, and then Mitch created one, and we just played them and decided which one was going to be hard. I think we created levels first and then thought how difficult they were afterwards. And then if there was platforms you couldn't reach, we tinkered with the coordinates to move things around.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice one. Thanks, folks. And thanks again for a really lovely presentation and awesome project.
Thank you.
Now, feel free to get your emoticons out and go crazy with those. Cool. So the next team, just check the running order. The next team have been thinking about the birds and the budgets, and they want to make your financial situation more pleasant viewing. To do that, they've created a really beautiful app that will help you to track your spending and savings and income. Please welcome Team Budgie.
Hi guys. Yeah. So our app is called Budgie. Oh, yeah, well done to the other team. That was really great. Don't really know how to follow on from that, but we'll try. Yeah, so we have designed a budget tracking app, and this is our presentation.
Hi, I'm Roman. I'm part of Team Budgie. Just to start off with our showing of our app, I want to ask you some important questions. Why is a budget important? Who should have a budget, and is making a budget hard? A budget allows you to be efficient and more in control of your financial well-being. And it's important that everyone have a budget, because budgeting, like I said, it allows you to have more control and more of an idea of where you are financially. And I hope that our budget app would help make that an effortless task for you. Now I want you to imagine one big purchase that you want to save for. How are you going to save that lump sum of money? How easy will it be? How long will it take? Can you even afford to save? Can you cut back? Can you accelerate the time you think you'll have to take to get that money all together? Budgie is definitely a great tool you can use to get an idea of all those questions you have.
Great. So this is like a little demo of how the app is run and how we can use it. So yeah, this is the startup of our app, and sorry, timed out a little bit. Yeah, so this is our app, and as you could see, we have added like a join button, which prompts you to create an account. So here you can see that the app is very popular with people called Pam, and many have signed up. So if there's any Pams in the audience, this could be the app for you. Yeah, so here we can see the user can log in with a very short password. And this brings you to our dashboard. And on the dashboard, this is where your pie charts start to populate. So at the top, you can input the month you created a statement, how much income. So for example, you could put your monthly wage in, and how much you've put away for savings. And below these inputs here, you can put in how much you're estimating to spend on groceries, utilities, and entertainment. This populates a little pie chart, and each category kind of shows like a percentage. So we've got current balance, groceries, utilities, entertainment, and savings. And then on the right side, you can see that we've got the total income and also current balance once all the deductions have been made. So there was quite a lot of things we wanted to implement onto this app, which we just kind of unfortunately ran out of time. But it would have been nice to have customizable user input fields so that you can kind of customize, what kind of groceries, what kind of shops, or what kind of apps you spent money on, to help categorize your money a bit better. Yep, so you can add as many statements as you want, and at the top it shows the month, so you don't get confused on which one you're on. Below, we've added some helpful kind of videos to kind of aid you and give support in financial, how to save money, financial support, And if you're struggling, like what's the best kind of ways to go about saving money, especially if you're saving for specific, like saving up for a holiday or, to buy a house or a mortgage. At the point is a nav bar. So we've also added some useful links which help support like money advice. These are useful resources which, you can kind of just click on when using the app, and they point to some helpful numbers which can help you, learning how to plan to save money a bit better. And then that's the end of the demo.
Unmuted myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Darina. So I wanted to share with you what we were learning during this project. So our app is built using Node.js, and the database was MongoDB. We improved our soft skills as well quite a lot during this project. So for example, communication during through different time zones, using written handover on Trello and Slack, and also having regular meetings, asking for help when needed. We were taking time to research the problem ourselves, and then approaching the coach as well, thinking from user's perspective, experimenting with different design solutions, both for backend and front end as well. So we would pick a few different options and we would test them, and we would choose the one that we like as a team, and making sure that we like what we make. Okay, and then how we were learning it. So of course we had to start with planning the project. We discussed our ideas and possible features of the app. We shared learning resources via Trello board as well, so we all had access to them. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, so we faced some challenges, quite a few of them actually, and we listed them below. I'm just going to talk through some of them. For example, learning and balancing all the technologies was quite challenging for us. So like displaying database elements in the front end and connecting backend and front end, using handlebars, helpers as well. We made it, but it was quite challenging. Upon reflection after finishing work on this project, we realized that we didn't really focus on personal learning goals. So we decided in the future to try and stick to realistic sprints in our personal projects, which would help us meet our learning goals. And yeah, things we wanted to celebrate. We exceeded our expectations of what we could actually make. Last Monday, we couldn't have imagined that we will have an actual working app by today. And being able to build it from scratch was great. Yeah, we were learning from code errors. We had to research a lot of code errors during this week. Yeah, we want to celebrate Git as well. We learned a lot about resolving merge conflicts, and in general, we improved our knowledge of Git commands. And yeah, Command Z was our best friend.
Hello, everyone. So some possible features that we would like to implement in the future would be automatic transactions, monthly statement comparisons, bank account linkage, more financial resources, especially in a time like this where it's a lot of financial hardship, email notifications, and automatic saving tool.
Yep. And that's our like little cheesy quote.
Cool, amazing work, everyone. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation and really, really lovely projects. Any questions from the audience? We can take another couple if you want to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them out loud. Cool, one from Matt Valez. What other programs would you like to create / design after having gone through this experience? Nice question.
Personally, I actually think rebuilding this one I think it'd be quite interesting to take my time with it, just because it's a kind of like a tool I would use in real life. So if anything, I would probably make another one. Maybe not in just 1.5 weeks, but yeah.
Cool. What about the other members of the team? What else would you like to build?
I would like to build like a diabetes app. I know that was one of the things that I really wanted to build in the start of this progress in the program. Just an app that would tell you if you're like in the future, you will have diabetes, or, you know, based on your BMI or your eating habits, you will have diabetes. I feel like diabetes is such like a unknown, but it's very serious. And I feel like a lot of people should have more aware of it.
Cool.
Just to answer the question, it's not PowerPoint, it's something called, Serena, do you remember the name?
Canva.
Okay, yeah, that's the one, Canva. Yeah, it's great.
It's very slick.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
I might have missed this. Just out of interest, how did you choose your tech stack? You know, what you went through and used. How did you come up with those choices?
Sorry, just to double check, is it in terms of the technical like tools we use or the ideas?
The technologies, so like Node and Mongo and so forth. So how did you come to those choices?
So previously we built the different app using Node.js, and I think we picked up quite a few like basic features, and we just felt more confident to go with those technologies, I think, rather than starting to learn something new in the last week, I guess. I don't know, what does everyone think?
Sensible choice.
Absolutely.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for the question. All right, thanks again, Team Budgie. Really awesome work. So next up, we have a team who likes to get things done, and they want to help you get things done too. So they've made an app, obviously, to help you do that. And to that end, they've taught themselves Java, Spring Boot, and React, which is no small feat. So over to you, Team Busily.
Hi everyone, we are Team Busily. Busily, I'll just share my screen. Busily is a productivity app that incentivizes you to get things done. You can register as a user. You can create tasks and mark tasks as either complete or delete tasks. You can set a deadline for tasks, and tasks are stored in the database, and you can log in from anywhere to access your tasks. So what does Busily look like? So there's a few screenshots of Busily. So our stack that we used to create Busily, in our front end, we had React with React router to dynamically render components on this, like React components on the screen based on what kind of state the user was logged in, logged out, or what tasks they had. We used Axios to send requests from the front end. We used Google's Material UI to style the components on the page, and we used Formic and Yup to handle form validation. So this was, say for example, you were signing up and your passwords didn't match, you couldn't sign up, or you had a password that was too short, or you didn't have a valid email address. For the backend, our stack was Spring Boot Java Framework, which is to fire up a server. And within that, we used Spring Web Security to keep users' information safe and prevent HTTP requests to API endpoints that you didn't have access to, bcrypt to encrypt passwords so that they weren't stored as plain text in the database, Spring Data JPA to handle database interactions, and PostgreSQL was our database. What challenges did we face? So it was a completely new tech stack to us. We had done a little bit of it in the previous module, but we were still learning a lot in this week, working across time zones, starting out with one UI and then changing to another. So we originally chose Bootstrap to style all of our elements on the page, but we decided that Material UI was better for the nice style components. But part of the challenge was getting the code that we already had to work with the Material UI. And we started with a few backend dependencies that we realized were not ideally what we wanted. And then finally getting the front end and back end to work together. What have we learned? We've learned how to create a responsive full stack web application using existing frameworks and libraries. We've learned a lot about the HTTP request response cycle, web security and authentication, form validation, and we've followed a lot of agile processes. I will hand you over to Vincenzo, who will provide a demonstration.
Okay, thanks, Alistair. So I'm going to show you the demo now. So here you can see the interface that we have. So when I try to go to tasks, it wouldn't show me all the tasks because I'm not signed up. So now I'm just gonna sign up, and here in a moment you can see our actual validation that is going on. So the first one is that we actually need a valid email, and then also that the password is required. And then the next one is also, so this used Yup and Formic, as we mentioned before, and then the 10 to 25 character limit. So you need to actually enter those to proceed. And then also the passwords must match or you can't create an account. So now I signed up and I go to tasks and, okay, yeah, so there's the task. So now we go to create one with a title. So it's a test task one, then a description, and the date picker, and then we save the task. And as you can see, we have like the completed or delete. So now I use the delete button, and then we have also have the completed one. And now just to actually show the feature of that you can only see tasks once you're with your user, once you're logged in. So I'm logging in with a different user, and once I log in, we will see different tasks. So this was a pre-created user, so he already has some tasks in there, and they are different to the previous users' tasks. And I'm just going to add a new task here too. So yeah, and I added a task to the bottom, and then when I log out and I try to go back to tasks, you can actually go there. So that's yeah, what we pretty much use to limit it to only specific users. So only the user that is logged in can see the task, or if you're actually logged in, you can see any tasks. Thank you for listening. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the processes that we went through. My name is Rowan, by the way. So definitely with the stack that you guys saw, is not the easiest stack. So we knew that going into this, it might be a little bit rough, but the way to get around the, the falls in the road, I guess, was just to make sure we did a lot of planning. So for GitHub specifically, we chose to go with Git flow, which is basically when you set it up to where you have your main branch, your develop branch, and then you have your feature branches off of that. And we locked down the main branch and the develop branch so that we can't make any mistakes and push something that we weren't supposed to push. Git flow is definitely more junior dev friendly for reasons like that. And we have it we have it so it's not just a a rule that we have of maybe, oh yeah, just make sure you don't push to the main, because that can happen anyway. On GitHub specifically, it's a one push, a one pull rule on there, to where you have to actually get a pull request to submit anything. So how do we solve our challenges? So definitely having retros every 2 to 3 days definitely help with just making sure everyone's actually reaching the goals that they wanted to reach. So whether it be, oh, I want to touch more front end, I'm doing a lot of back end, or maybe it's, I want to actually be able to complete a ticket. Being aware of what everyone's trying to accomplish, and the team was definitely helpful, because now you know what tasks people kind of want to go towards and what tasks people are kind of trying to avoid, or it's not really something that they're interested in. So that definitely helps. The Trello board was our one-stop shop for everything. We had a team charter that literally had rules for the team. So we had a schedule that had our stand-ups and stand-downs, and just things like that. On our Trello board, we also had like team minutes, which was meeting minutes, which was basically when we whenever we would have a meeting, I would just jot down all the important points of it. So that way, just like I said, the Trello board is supposed to be the one-stop shop. So if you have any questions on what we went over, or maybe you forget something, everything is right there. You just go right to the board. And definitely not staying stuck for too long. If you find yourself stuck, even though we broke into pairs, so it was 2 and 2, if you find yourself stuck on a problem and it's been like 30 minutes to an hour, don't stay stuck there, because we only have 2 weeks. So we have to definitely try to make sure we're getting as much done as possible in the time that we have. Okay, so definitely possible future features that we want to add would be something that will allow us to show, like give the user something to look at when they actually achieve a certain amount of tasks. So we wanted to make this badge system. We also wanted to do, well, I know this was my main thing that I really wanted to add on, was this day-night toggle, which I thought was going to be really easy. It wasn't. So maybe on the future version, we'll have that 2.0, we'll have that type of thing. Also, like, just unlocking stuff like fancy features and backgrounds based on achievement, and a team feature for big teams, and things like that, basically.
That is busily. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Team Busily. Really, really lovely presentation and really awesome project. It's worth highlighting actually that both Team Busily and Team Budgie had a team that was a transatlantic team. So some people in the States and some people in the UK. So they both had this added challenge when it came to coordinating their teamwork and communicating with each other. But I think they did amazingly well to meet that challenge, and really, really well done, folks. Cool. Are you taking questions, Team Busily? Totally.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to ask. Would anybody like to ask any questions?
Cool. Again, either unmute and ask away, or
just really quick to answer the one question in the chat about the app integration with like Alexa, Outlook, and everything. Actually, when we first started the project, the idea was kind of to make sure it has some type of either email integration or text integration. Of course, we kind of ran out of time to get that far, but definitely that would be something that we wanted to do.
Cool. And there's a question from Graham as well. Do you see it in the chat? It was mentioned that Postman was used for testing. Did you do unit testing or use a testing framework?
We did not, unfortunately. We knew of a lot of testing frameworks like JUnit and there was a React testing framework as well, but unfortunately we got sort of really like lost in the process of like getting the app to work. We didn't use any testing other than Postman to make sure that we were like sending the correct requests and getting the correct responses back.
I had a quick question for Busily. My favorite part of your presentation was actually how you described your working process. It sounded like you guys had really good methods for managing your time together. And I'm just wondering, what was your biggest takeaway about A, working in a transatlantic team, but B, like in all the processes that you discovered, what was your light bulb moment where you said like, where this is really working, wow?
I'd probably say that one of them was with having good stand downs and also handovers. So Rowan would always come in at around 2 o'clock our time. So we always had to make sure that we actually have good handovers. So we just told her what we did and made sure that we knew what we had to do to actually take over from when she finished the previous day. And also we had to make sure that everything was sort of documented on the Trello board, so she could go on the Trello board and just have a look at what we did that day. And she was also really good at updating the Trello board once she finished, and we came on in the morning and we had pretty much everything. We could see everything that she completed. And then also on GitHub, what we did is we made sure to always have our branches. So that was good for collaboration. Like we always used different branches when we were testing things. Then we had, as Alistair mentioned, the branch protection. So you couldn't just accidentally merge something or commit to main. So you had to actually be on the right branch. And yeah, those are pretty much things that we used. And then just all the retros and pair programming pretty much. So those are the most important bits, I'd say.
Oh, thanks for the question, Ryan, and really nice answer. So the next and final team is going to blow the house down. It's going to take the world by storm, and their app is already going spiral. Please welcome Team Tornado.
So hello everyone, welcome to our presentation on Tornado, a gaming platform we've made over the past 2 weeks. I'm Harry and I've worked with Anna and Anastasia, which you can imagine how many times I messed up their names. So our group name Tornado came more from desperation than inspiration, and it could be that our project's going to change the landscape of gaming, or it could refer to how every time we came in contact with some code we destroyed it. This project is just deployed and ready to be played, so we can post a link at the end and you guys can have a go with it.
Okay, so our first thing to do was to come up with our team charter. We talked about our strengths and weaknesses, what we valued most when working together. These are some of the things that we listed. So everyone has a voice, having good vibes, being invested and committed, just to name a few. We discussed our group norms, so like how we'd be working together. We said we would be mobbing most of the time. We'd always share our resources that we find, and making sure we make regular commits and update our Trello board to keep organized. We defined some things in the measure of success by the end of the project, which is point number 5. And we'll look at that a little bit later on in the presentation. Making this team charter really gave us a chance to get to know each other a little bit more, and really helped set the tone for our project going forward. It was fun and we had lots of laughs while making it.
Hello everybody, my name is Anastasia. So our personal goals towards these last 2 weeks were once again to get out of our comfort zone and try building something entirely new to us, a game. So this will represent one final challenge before going into placement. As with everything new, when starting with this project, we went off to research more about game development, including frameworks associated with it. And we just started coming up with ideas of small implementations to build. When we got back together, we saw that limiting ourselves to one game would have taken away the opportunities for us to experiment with different techniques and mechanics. and it would have not given us the chance to diversify our learning. So for this reason, we have decided we weren't only going to build a game for our final project, but a whole platform around it, and it was going to contain our own very games. We thought that progress within a group only really happens when every member progresses toward their own personal goals first and shares back their newfound knowledge to the others. So during the planning stage, we have set up a Trello board to try and visualize the steps we needed to take in order to get to our first MVP. And also we have used as a way to collect and share the resources we were looking at amongst our team. When designing our first MVP was mainly focused on the game side. So the user interface was only represented by a button that you could click and the game would come up and you could interact with it. As we met the very first requirements, we started adding additional features to our board that we wanted to include in our project. And that's when one game became 3 and a single page became our whole web application.
So in this project, our only real specifications were to make a game and use JavaScript. So we used Node.js was our runtime environment to execute the JavaScript code, along with Express as our web application framework. So as we said earlier, we started the project by going off and researching different possible game frameworks. Some frameworks we found kind of did a bit too much for us and were more drag and drop than actual coding. So we ended up choosing Phaser, which we felt gave us good options for each game we wanted to do, while also keeping us interacting with the game loop and other fundamental aspects of game development. And then in order to store any information from our website, like user information, we used MongoDB. It's allowed us to store the data on our machines. And eventually when we went to deploy, it allowed us to have this data on the cloud. And then for the deployment, we used Heroku linked with the MongoDB database. So although the project was really fun and informative, there were of course some challenges along the way. So as a lot of the tech we were using was new to us, we found ourselves looking at guides and watching tutorials and reading documentation. With everyone doing everything in a slightly different way. So it caused our project to start as a Frankenstein type hybrid of lots of different setups. So we wanted to make sure we fully understood everything we did. So we refactored it down and then we refactored it again and then 5 times over until we're eventually happy with how it looked. I also personally had a load of problems with the Phaser documentation, and I know Anna and Anastasia had similar problems where I always felt like there was a really easy, nice way to do something, and that was on a different version of Phaser. And when we tried to actually apply anything, it didn't work. But this is obviously the kind of problem that you get with any kind of framework you work with. We also had some troubles with deploying the app. So it deployed nicely to Heroku, and then whenever we tried to link the database, everything crashed and broke. And of course, it was a very simple fix, but that we couldn't find for ages and was very frustrating when we didn't know it. So because we are supremely confident with our app, and not that we couldn't figure out the video stuff, we're going to demo this live. So let's hope. So I'll take a second to load.
Okay, so this is the home page of our gaming site. If we click onto the games in the nav bar, we can see a selection of games that we have, but in order to play our games, you have to sign up. So we'll go ahead and click the sign up button. And this takes us to a login page. So we're going to try and just make a typo. So we're going to put a wrong username in. And this will obviously flag an error message. We also have the same function for like a wrong password. Okay, so this is our personalized dashboard. For further implementation, we plan to add some game stats to it. So you can log your high score. And we'll go ahead and play. So the first game is game 1 and created by Anastasia. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, so this is a platform static game. The purpose is to try and collect all the coins available and gain some points. After the first level, a bomb gets introduced. So if you touch it, it's game over and you have to start all over again. The tricky part is the game gets harder and harder as you go along, because after every level that you complete, a new bomb gets added.
So the second game was one that I made. I pretty much saw a tutorial on parallax movements and thought it looked interesting. So as we get further, we see that the backgrounds move to give a kind of 3D effect. I didn't really know where I wanted to go with this game. I just started putting obstacles in the way and seeing what phaser could do. So if you touch the saw, you die. Bird touches you, you die. If you touch most things, you die. Added some moving platforms, which were a bit awkward, but I should be able to make the jumps. Oh yeah, and there's a double jump in there. So there's only a little bit further if I hit this jump. And now we get into the end game, which is survive as long as you can as more of these birds hunt you down. Oh, and I died. So that was game 2.
So for the third game, it's a little bit different. I wanted to make a top-down style game. The layout was created a bit differently to the other 2 games. It uses a grid system where like individual tiles are placed to make this map. So our project is never fully complete. So every time we say we're done with a game, we're always adding new features. And something I would like to implement is like a timer, because these zombies, their movements are quite random. Sometimes it's kind of stuck in the corner where the stars are, and you have to wait for ages for them to let you through. So I think like a timer element would just add a bit of pressure and make the game a little bit more fun.
So all of the styling, I'm not very stylish. So Anna and Anastasia did most of this. That's why it looks so nice. And then we obviously have log out functionality, and you can log in. So back to the project.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, so these are the things we listed to measure our success, to have built our MVP, which has come a long way since our initial idea, that we've had loads of fun building it. Our app looks absolutely awesome, and that we've learned loads of new things. So our personal goals were pretty much aligned. We wanted to be able to build a game and understand the app and the associated tech stack we used. And I think we've achieved that. So well done, guys.
And obviously we've achieved this demo going well because it's gone amazingly. Are there any questions?
Oh, thank you so much, Team Tornado. Really, really wonderful presentation and really super impressive project. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, just a quick one. What was the most difficult part of that for you? What did you find the most challenging?
I think for me personally was the game, because it was something that we had no idea where to even begin, I guess. Like, and it's, I guess, the reason why we chose it in the first place. It was something totally new. And definitely like the documentation was I mean, yeah. So I guess the game part, yeah. To me, yeah. How about you guys?
For me, yeah, mainly that phaser documentation had me screaming. Then yeah, also some of the routing and folder system definitely got confusing at points.
Yeah, for me it was building the game as well, but we've kind of started with one and sort of moved on and progressed with the other ones.
We have some questions in the chat. Is it okay if we answer them quickly?
Please go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So what is next for the platform? Adding more games will be incredible. We wanted to add a chat feature as well so that gamers could sign in and chat amongst each other.
And a leaderboard system was the very next step. We wanted to be able to get people's high scores out. If we had another day, you'd have all seen that.
Was there any thought about how to monetize a platform like this?
So we've already got a deal with Apple and Microsoft, and we're just making them fight over it.
Nice.
And on if we worked individually, so we each took one of the games, but of course we're all building off each other. And if you look, all the games do have pause menus. We didn't do that. If you look at the pause menus and the death screens, and that's all the same stuff, so it's all just linked through. So I can put a link in to this thing because it is deployed. I'm kind of scared it will just explode when you all try and go on it, but I can give it a go. If you just give me a minute.
Thanks, Harry, for sharing the link. And thanks everyone. Thanks to all 4 teams who've done such an amazing job and really come such a long way in the last 12 weeks. It's been such a huge pleasure working with you. So please, one final round of emojis for the whole cohort. Get out your best, most powerful emojis. Cool, nice work, nice emoji. So just to wrap things up, if you've ever tried programming, you'll know that it's both frustrating and wonderful in equal measures. It can be super addictive. I actually looked for some studies to see whether it had been shown to be actually addictive. And there are some studies that show, I think, that dopamine is released. So I guess that's going in that direction. But along the way, you'll find that, one moment you feel like you're the hybrid of a wizard and a ninja, able to accomplish anything. And the next minute, you'll feel about as useful as a chocolate teapot full of tea. And at Makers, we strive to help people deal with this kind of emotional roller coaster, so that you can people can kind of level these things off a little bit and kind of survive the tough times. And these people have been on that roller coaster for 12 weeks now. Slowly they're getting used to it, but still they'll need some support, and that's where you, dear line managers, come in. So I trust you now as we hand them over to you to take care of them and help them to continue growing and flourishing. And I will look forward to seeing how they get on. The last thing to do is to thank you all for coming along today. It's been really, really nice to have you here with us, here with us in this virtual space. One day soon, I don't know when, but one day we'll be back on campus in commercial streets, and I hope that you'll come and visit us and say hello, and we'll be able to talk in person and get to know each other. But until then, take care. Have a lovely long weekend, and that's it. Yeah, thanks for coming.